Since starting Quoorn's Quest, I have played over 12 different Pokemon fan games made by very passionate and creative Pokemon fans. So, I only felt it was right to take some time and list off my top 5 favorite Pokemon fan games. Coming in at number 5, we have Pokemon This Gym of Mine. Pokemon This Gym of Mine was a really cool game. It had a really interesting story and really interesting game mechanic. I feel like so many times, like I mentioned in the actual review video, people have wondered what it's like to be a Pokemon gym leader and have kind of wondered why Pokemon hasn't made that a game of its own yet. But luckily, Pokemon This Gym of Mine answers that question, and it earns my top 5 spot for a couple different reasons. Number 1 being the creativity. This game is very creative. I do really enjoy this story of being a new gym leader that takes some time to get into the town, and you kind of learn these new Pokemon playing styles and these new Pokemon rules. They're very creative because obviously with a game like this that totally flips the genre on its head, you can get into a lot of snags with your gameplay, like, oh, what if you say you're a water gym leader but then you use nothing but grass type Pokemon? What's really cool and creative about this game is that they spent the time to come up with their own unique rules to prevent that stuff from happening, building it into the code, as well as making your opponents not like your typical gaming characters. So when we normally play a Pokemon game, if we know we're going up against a fire type, we bring water types up the wazoo. We bring ground types. We bring all the type coverages that are super effective to fire types. But in this game, it's the idea that these are just regular characters coming through. So you might run into a bunch of bug type trainers. You might run into trainers with a variety of different Pokemon that might be super effective to your team. But it's one of those things of it's very balanced. It's not like they're just totally rigging up a battle simulator to where you as a ground gym leader are only fighting grass type and water type trainers. There is a big variety in the Pokemon that the trainers use, making it a very unique and realistic challenge. Another thing that was pretty interesting was the story. It was a little bit lackluster compared to some of the other games I have reviewed, but it did earn the number 5 spot because the story was pretty original in of itself. You're a new gym leader and you have to kind of make sure and protect the town. The protecting the town part, I think, was what really got to me because it really emphasized from a Pokemon lore standpoint and from their own storytelling standpoint the importance of gym leaders, which we often see in anime, in the games, that these gym leader characters are pretty important. So it's nice to be able to actually play the game in a way where you see how important you are, where you can actually help the townsfolk, you can actually influence how the city is built and do all that kind of stuff as well. But then also, talking about some of the negatives of the game, it did get very repetitive very fast. I do like Pokemon battles, but at the same time, it is one of those things where I also enjoy other things in Pokemon. I'm not just a Pokemon battler. But again, if you are into competitive Pokemon, if you are really into building these very strategic Pokemon teams and trying out new and different Pokemon in battle scenarios, then this game is definitely for you. I mean, this is the Pokemon battler's favorite game, probably. And coming in at the number 4 spot, we have an oldie but a goodie, Pokemon Wilds. Pokemon Wilds was a really unique game because it very much felt like Minecraft mixed with some simulator, mixed with some like farming kind of games and stuff like that, where essentially you are on this island, you're in the wilderness, and you come across some Pokemon. And these Pokemon are not just for battling, they're for helping you shape the landscape, navigate to different areas that you are, I think, stranded in or like marooned in. It's definitely a really interesting game and super creative. I do like, that's why it's in my number 4 spot. It is really creative. It is very different than the mainstream Pokemon games because while you do battle Pokemon, it has this very much Minecraft feel to it. You are crafting new Pokeballs, new items. You're having to use Pokemon in the overworld to either shape the land, cut down trees, build things, or even like navigate the oceans and like fly around. It's a very interesting game. It feels like Legends Arceus before we got Legends Arceus. The animation style is very cool. It kind of feels like the classic Gen 2 games before they got remastered, like those silver and crystal and things like that. But yeah, from a creativity standpoint, it was really, really cool. I loved how expansive and open this world was. And again, it felt like Legends Arceus before we had Legends Arceus. There wasn't much of a story. The story was kind of more of that survival aspect of like things did happen. You did kind of reach different checkpoints because you would either find stronger Pokemon, you would find Pokemon that were able to do different things. The game wasn't just totally open world, have at it. There were some kind of stepping stones and some ladder rungs you had to climb, but for the most part, the game was pretty much whatever you wanted it to be. Again, obviously the goal was to collect as many Pokemon and just build a livable and sustainable area and uncover some of the mysteries of the area that you were in as well. It was a little hard to get into, I'll say that, but that might have just been because I'm a classic Pokemon player. I do like simulation games, I do like that kind of stuff, but at the same time, it felt a little off. I wasn't a big fan of having to build every single thing, and it was a little rigid, because obviously certain Pokemon could do certain things and there wasn't a ton of overlap. So your party, though it was diverse, you did have to kind of put some thought into it, or you're swapping out Pokemon a lot from the boxes or from your little like farm pen where you had them. It's one of those things, if you are into cozy gaming, and you want a cozy Pokemon game, Pokemon Wilds is definitely the game for you. Very Minecrafty, very classic with the animation style. It was very creative, and it was really fun to play, but yeah, it earned my top 4 spot. Moving on to the top 3 spot is another kind of interesting Pokemon game. It's Pokemon Close Combat. And no, I'm not talking about the move, but Pokemon Close Combat was incredibly creative. Like, this is like, we're getting up to like the number 1 spots and stuff like the top 3. This is a solid top 3 contender simply because of just how creative this game was. It felt, every time I played it, it felt like I was playing a classic arcade fighting game. And it was pretty easy to get down to it, you know? It's one of those things that there's always a learning curve with any Pokemon game. With any game in general, that's probably one of the negative things about it, was that the learning curve of this game was a little bit higher in the sense of you had to relearn those classic arcade kind of controls, and especially if you were using a different kind of controller like I was, or like a keyboard, you had to make sure you knew what was mapped to what. But luckily they do have a stage where you could test things out, you could test out Pokemon. But it's really fun, and it's one of those things of, not only can it be played mindlessly, you could also play it in the sense of like you're trying to improve playing one character. It was very much one of those things of, when I was reviewing it for the channel, it was very fun just to sit down for an afternoon, try out all the different characters, try out the different features, and just kind of, you know, have a fun afternoon with it. But I know for a fact that the Discord and the community around Pokemon Close Combat do hold their own tournaments. So again, for those that are really into competitive Pokemon, but maybe in a slightly different way, Pokemon Close Combat is a fantastic way to flex your Smash Bros skills, your Street Fighter skills, your Mortal Kombat skills. Like, this game is really, really cool and has a beautiful art design to it where you just get lost in it. The backgrounds, the Pokemon themselves, the moves, all the different things are so creative. They are so, so beautiful to look at. And even the like music and stuff is very fun. It's very nostalgic to like those arcade games that you don't really see a lot of anymore, unfortunately, just because everything has moved to digital formatting. It was really, really fun, and it earned my top 3 spot because, yeah, Pokemon Close Combat is just a really fun way to spend an afternoon. Felt like I was a teenager again. And now we're moving on to the top 2. We are getting down to our top 2 selections. So let's look at Pokemon Gaia as our number 2 pick. Pokemon Gaia was a more traditional Pokemon game. It was very, very cool because, again, it was a traditional Pokemon game, but it did have a little bit of a flair to it. You weren't a Pokemon trainer necessarily looking to be the next gym champion. You were an assistant to your professor that was an archaeologist. And your main kind of task was exploring this world and figuring out the mysteries that there were. And the mystery, of course, revolved around Regigigas. And I think that was a really cool game because Regigigas, I feel like, unfortunately got really, really looked over in the Pokemon world. As a Pokemon that kind of created a big chunk of the Pokemon world, you'd think that they would have its own game by now. You'd think that with all the different Regis that they have, they would have built their own game for the Reggie Pokemon and done something very similar to this. But I'm glad this game exists because Pokemon Gaia is fantastic. And again, from a creativity standpoint, it was really cool to kind of go through the Pokemon game and have the gyms be more of like a side thing. They were still really fun, they were still very difficult, and you did need them to move forward in the game. But it was one of those things of, I didn't feel that kind of pressure. I felt, honestly, a higher pressure because of all the different like elements to the game that made up the story. The story was really, really cool in my opinion, where you could actually like meet these interesting characters and you could actually feel the weight of the world on your character as you are trying to uncover these mysteries and stop the evil team. What's really cool too is that they use a variety of different Pokemon in that classic Game Boy sprite. So it was really, really cool to see new Pokemon kind of reimagined for that 2D model that maybe they weren't originally intended for. But it's very, very cool that I could have a variety of different Pokemon. Again, they did a fantastic job of being able to disperse a bunch of Pokemon. When you first started the game, you didn't just run into like Rattatas, Pidgeys, your basic things you'd see in a normal Pokemon game. You ran into some more unique options to start building a very unique team for such a unique story and a very unique game. Also, I might be a little biased, but the Sinnoh Pokemon, the Sinnoh starters were your starter options, and those were super cool. As well as they brought in Mega Evolutions again in a really organic way. They, similar to Gen 6 when they introduced Mega Evolutions, they did it in a way where it fit in with this lore of this history that something had happened in this region, where you had to kind of uncover why these Pokemon were doing the things they were doing. So it was very, very cool to see that. It was very, very cool to see the Reggies get their like credit that they deserve. Like to actually see them be main characters in the game was fantastic. And yeah, Pokemon Gaia was very, very fun. I would encourage everyone to check it out. As always, thank you to the subscribers, and thank you especially to the member questers for making these videos possible. Y'all have given me so much love and support and have asked so many great questions, recommended so many awesome fan games. I do appreciate every single one of you. If you are not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And if you want to go that extra step and get awesome membership perks and become a member quester, hit that join button down below. And we are in the final slot of my top 5 favorite fan games I have played so far. Out of all the different videos I have made, the 12 different fan games I have played over my years as a Pokemon creator has led to this current favorite Pokemon game, which it may not be a surprise at all, but it is Pokemon Unbound. Pokemon Unbound follows another kind of forgotten mythical / legendary Pokemon that honestly has a ton of power. It focuses on Hoopa and the story of Hoopa and how Hoopa works within the world of Kalos, but you are actually in the Boreas region, which you find out was the region that was at war in this game's canon to Kalos. So it was really cool because not only did this game creatively expand upon the current lore of the Pokemon world, they were able to take what we know as Pokemon fans and give everything new meaning. They gave Hoopa such a prominent feature in this game that it was rightfully deserved, because Hoopa is a very powerful Pokemon. Much like the Reggies in Pokemon Gaia, Hoopa in this sense can do a lot of things that the main Pokemon games don't really give it credit for. The fact that it can open portals to different dimensions was obviously a huge turning point of the villainous teams. That's what they were going to use to take over the world. They wanted Hoopa's power, and it's a powerful Pokemon. So they were not only using that to shift the flow of things in the game's story, they were throwing things at you with Hoopa. You fought so many different legendary Pokemon. So many different Pokemon were able to be brought to this world and included in this game because of Hoopa, which meant that we got this beautiful, overarching, fully complete, built world. And I mean, if y'all know me, y'all know I love world building. Y'all know that I love to see when a story comes full circle, and this game was incredibly unique in its storytelling. It made me feel the weight of the world. At every decision I made, knew that what I needed to be doing was to help the world and to help Hoopa. And another really cool thing that was really creative in my opinion is the gyms were not your traditional gyms. They all had a fun gimmick to it. They all did something completely out of the norm. There was a gym that had de-evolution, where instead of your Pokemon fainting, if it had a previous evolution, it would just de-evolve. And that was a crazy way to tie in the final gym battle because it was something no player was ready for. This game threw so many twists, threw so many curveballs at you, allowed you to catch so many awesome, unique Pokemon. It really was probably one of the best Pokemon games I have played as of late. It was a blast. It personally did reignite some of my passion for those classic Pokemon games, for just Pokemon in general, because it was a unique story. The world itself was beautiful. It wasn't, and I'll even knock the actual Pokemon games for this one. It wasn't like, oh, this one little route was a desert. No, the biomes seamlessly shifted into one another. You didn't just get one route that was an icy area, an ice cave. You got an entire town. You got an entire 3 routes dedicated to a biome, and then it naturally shifted. You start the game at the top of the mountain, you work your way down, and when you get spit out at the bottom of a cave, everything's grass now because you're at the bottom of the mountain. Everything before that, and including in the cave, was icy and things of that nature. You even found lava areas. Again, it was a really, really cool game. I would encourage everyone to check it out. It was so much fun. So many versatile Pokemon. Similar to the other games I talked about, it didn't just limit the game to the Game Boy game Pokemon that were available at the time. They went back and they figured out how to put new Pokemon we all know and love into these games all the way up to Gen 7. Introduced Mega Evolution again, because who doesn't love Mega Evolution? And even went one step further and gave Mega Evolution to the gym leaders like they should have. Once that was introduced, every gym leader moving forward had an ace Pokemon that could Mega Evolve, because if you have it, you might as well use it. It was a really, really cool game. I would encourage everyone to play it, and please check it out. Check out the other video. Thank you all for watching my top 5 Pokemon fan games I've played so far. If you want to see more Quoorn's Quest, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you want to play some of these fan games, make sure you join the Discord. I either have a download link or I can get you guys the proper method to get to the game download itself. I have played all these, I have found all these links myself, so please, if you are struggling, if you realize that, oh, a website where you used to get these games is no longer active, come to the Discord, simply ask, and we can point you in the right direction. And again, thank you to the member questers as well. Without y'all, these videos would not be possible. Thank you so much for the support. I do appreciate it. If you want to become a member quester and get awesome perks like an exclusive Discord, you get game updates on my current game reviews, and many, many other things, please hit that join button and become a member for as low as 99 cents. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this game review of my top 5 Pokemon fan games I have played thus far. Again, thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and until next time, happy questing, y'all.